Actually, we just, so we've been trying a lot of different webinar strategies.
Hmm.
We just had one this morning on our employee experience maturity model,
Yeah.
and we did breakouts in the webinar, and it was an opportunity for prospects and customers to interact on specific challenges and topics that they were wanting to talk about. So building that community and
Definitely.
thought leadership on top of course, wanting opportunities to sell, but
Yeah.
those conversations allow us to educate and be thought of as thought leaders. But it's so rich for us to take the feedback and the challenges and build it back into our messaging and into our solutions that we're creating, right?
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. Your host here, Alessandro Cutri, joined today by none other than Mary Poppin, this Chief Experience Officer over at Horizons. Today is going to be an interesting episode. We're going to be diving to a little bit about her story, some insights that she's seeing inside of the HR world, and some different trends that are coming up right now within the market. So definitely make sure to stick around. But without further ado, I'll kind of just pass it on over to you, Mary, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and telling the audience a little bit about your background and obviously what led you to Horizons.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much for having me today. It's good to see you.
Of course.
I'm actually an IO psychologist by education, and I spent the majority of my career over the past 20 years in B2B SaaS technology. So started in the really, really early days of SaaS with Success Factors, which became part
Hmm.
of SAP. Uh,
Yeah.
and I've been responsible ultimately for building customer delivery and making sure that customers are getting value in adopting solutions. But along the way, as part of HR technology, I got to see the real firsthand interaction between employee experience and customer experience. So I've been very passionate about that throughout my career. And I actually teach at Michigan State
Hmm.
in the Masters of Customer Experience Management program, focusing
Nice.
on the intersection of employee experience and customer experience.
Nice, right? So you're definitely that's definitely a topic that you love to talk about, right? And it's something
I
that you're
do.
probably passionate about. What are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of like, trends that are happening within the customer experience, realm?
Well, there's so much related to data that we've
Hmm.
been collecting for so many years that now technology and AI are really allowing us to uncover. So more and more organizations are starting to be able to look at the correlations and the relationships between customer experience and other business outcomes, as well as their employee experience. So we're starting to see the opportunity to raise insights around the relationships across all of these experiences, right? And all
Yeah.
of this data, and actually start to predict what's going to happen if we do or don't take action on things. So we're living in a world now where the intersection of functional data, you know,
Yeah.
is really companies who don't focus on cross-functional and cross experience are going to be left behind because tech allows us to get there now.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm curious to hear like what are some of the, the problems that a lot of companies are coming to you guys with at, Horizons, and how do you really, help them overcome those?
Yeah, a lot of where we start with customers is around maturing the employee experience. There are so many different technologies today
Mhm.
that align to their desired business processes, right? And their desired employee experience in different ways. So part of how we start working with customers is to really do a discovery on where they are and where they want to go,
Yeah.
right? And then we can sort of deep dive what are the processes that are working, where are the gaps, and then we can help align the technology to that. So it's really about driving with process first,
Mhm.
with technology to support instead of the other way around, right? Because a lot of our
Yeah.
customers actually are sort of beholden to the technology instead of being able to design the processes that they really want and need. And so we sort of come in and help break that mindset.
Almost bridge the gap too, right? Because it's important, right? To have those processes in place, and that is obviously what's going to set up, your employees for success, and if your employees are set up for success, it's going to help your overall business grow, right? And so there's so much that goes into that. I think it was one of the things that I was talking with one of my partners about the other day about how important it is to, have those those systems, those processes that aren't relying upon just the technology itself, but actual SOPs, right? Things that you can document, things that, people are able to follow, because it just creates a really smooth onboarding process for new employees, or it's a better experience for them overall.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, the worst is on a weekend where you're on your phone, you have tons of apps, you have like easy navigation to things. I mean, just
Yeah.
Amazon as an example, right? Click, click, and go, and you get your product the same day or tomorrow.
Yeah.
But a lot of times when employees go to work, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to go here for this, and I have to go here for this, and I don't have access to sales data, and I don't have access to this, right? So a lot of it for employees is troubleshooting just the technical experience, right? Or the overall how they do their job, and then not having access to the things that they need to do their job well. And so you go from this sort of modern experience back to all of these challenges and obstacles, which actually, impacts employee engagement negatively. They sort of feel
Yeah.
like, right, their job becomes a little bit of a slog to get done. So organizations need to start thinking about, how do we make that experience modern and easy, like employees have, in their
Yeah.
personal lives.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so I think it would help if you could even share like an example of, a client that maybe you guys have worked with. You don't have to obviously disclose any names if you're not comfortable, but just, kind of what the transformation they went through, obviously working with you guys, and what you were able to do with them.
Yeah, so I won't disclose the name, but it was a
Mhm.
large retailer that had, multiple entities, multiple stores, and really wanted to pinpoint how are some of the stores with customer satisfaction, customer experience, right, faring so much better than these other stores? Is it simply location? Is it manager of the store? Is it, right, what are the factors? And then on top of that, they're collecting all of this employee experience and engagement data. So
Mhm.
there's so much rich information that was living in HR, and the other part of the rich data was living, with the COO and sort of the overall customer experience and store satisfaction ultimately.
Yeah.
And so we were able to partner with them and look across all of this data to see which stores actually have employees that are saying these things are working well, right? These things aren't. And what are some of the other drivers that we can find related to the differences that are happening across the stores? So being able to pinpoint from employee feedback, specifically what some of these stores were doing, whether in some cases it was that they were having daily huddles with their store manager, and the stores that weren't, saw lower results. So it's things like that we were able to pinpoint some of the differences and help them then focus. How do we invest more in employee development? How do we share best practices across managers, for example, in the stores? So that's one example of sort of bringing all that data together
Yeah.
that makes it so
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think that is super powerful, right? Because it sets up the business for, right. It's really setting up the business for success, right? That's ultimately, because I always say that, the business is a reflection of the people inside of it, right? It's a reflection of them, moving and obviously operating within it. So it's so imperative for employees to be on the right track with things and being able to have the right guidelines in that sense. So I love that you bring that up. I did want to transition just a little bit, Mary, into, just talking about, relationships and, growing businesses, right? Because that's a segment that we always like to touch on over here at Grow IT. I guess in your experience from obviously working within the company, you've obviously worn a couple of hats at some point. Like what has worked well for you guys in terms of getting your name out there and, building those relationships with potential clients?
So, great question.
Hmm.
Um, the best traction we get is when we are actively engaged with our customers at a decision maker and executive level. And we
Mm.
have these ongoing, I don't like the term QBR, so let's call it a value review. But even
Yeah.
if we don't have an active project, because we're a consultancy, even when we
Yeah.
don't have an active project, we're maintaining these relationships at that level to continue as a trusted advisor, right? Because
Yeah.
business strategies change, processes change, technology changes. So we just need to stay engaged with them.
Hmm.
And that is our best growth opportunity. And then, of course, their referrals. Where we struggle is probably, we'd love to hear suggestions for this, but it's
Yeah.
educating the market on the new things that we're doing and getting into the right stakeholders at the right time with the right message, right? So it's
Yeah.
that kind of personalized, not only marketing, but just outreach plan. Um,
Yeah.
Struggle there. We have not mastered that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that's like we hear that all the time from different folks, but the fundamentals, right, when it comes to building those relationships, and I think what's happening in today's era is what we're noticing just from the market is AI and automation has kind of, made it very hard to get a hold of a lot of these people because of the fact that, people's inboxes are, blown up with a whole bunch of messages. If you go on LinkedIn, you got 30, 40 different connection requests from people that you don't know, right? And so we're living in an era that's a little bit harder and harder for people to stand out within all that noise, right? So one of the things that we always tell people, and for anybody listening, the best ways to get into those right conversations is trying to just start conversations, right? Trying to have those conversations that don't always have to revolve around you selling something to them, right? And I think that's the big component of what we always preach here is like, how do you get into more of those conversations? Because ultimately, that's what's going to lead into deal flow and deals that come out of that. And even if nothing does, right? At least they know what you guys do. They have your on file. Whenever something does come up, you're the first person they think of. So, yeah, that's typically what we always see over here, and it's where we're moving towards as a market, right? As we kind of go more and more towards that technology, I
Mhm.
feel like there's more and more value for almost those human interactions as well.
Completely agree. Actually, so we've been trying a lot of different webinar strategies.
Hmm.
We just had one this morning on our employee experience maturity model.
Yeah,
And we did breakouts in the webinar, and it was an opportunity for prospects and customers to interact on specific challenges and topics that they were wanting to talk about. So building that community and thought
definitely.
leadership on top of course, wanting opportunities to sell, but
Yeah.
those conversations allow us to educate and be thought of as thought leaders, but it's so rich for us to take the feedback and the challenges and build it back into our messaging and into our solutions that we're creating, right? So
Oh my, yes, that's
that
that's
community.
gold, right? That's so important.
Yeah.
Because the best, I always say the best offers that you'll ever create, or the best, marketing messages or sales messages are always going to come from talking with people, right? And hearing their challenges and hearing what they're going through, and then be able to either create a product that can solve it directly, or through your messaging, being able to relate directly to what they're going through, right? Because those are the most powerful marketing messages. So the fact that you bring that up, right, having those discussions, it allows you to to be able to get that data that's like so useful.
Mhm. Absolutely. So we're looking to do more of that, but that requires resources and time. And so
Yeah, yeah, as
it's
does
kind of
everything.
hard to scale, right? But super powerful.
Yeah, one of the things that we always recommend to folks, and who's ever listening to this, right? If you obviously have like sales calls, or you have different conversations with your ideal prospects, if you can record those, right, and have those recordings, right, and feed it actually into an AI model, right, that can then be able to become basically your, let's just say, your AI model that's trained on your ICP conversations, you can start to build marketing messages around all the different conversations that you're having with those folks. So just a neat tip right over there that we use over here, that we always tell people to go ahead and implement as well, because it'll give you some real life data into that.
And it's
Um,
so, and just one thing on top of that,
yeah,
because I
please,
love
please.
that,
Yeah,
is that outside of sales and marketing, sharing information, those conversations feed into product development, into delivery, into best practices, right? So that the silos just cannot allow companies to be successful anymore. So it is taking the AI, output, and then being able
yeah.
to share that across the rest of the organization for certain use cases too, is really, really powerful.
Definitely, definitely. And I'm curious to hear, like, if you were to, give some advice to other founders, because we get a lot of founders, CEOs that tune in, right? That obviously have teams that are, managing them. And, what would you say is some practical things that they can kind of take away from this, right? And say, hey, like if, these are some quick wins that you can add to start to increase, either the employee retention or just, have your employees work more efficiently. What are those quick wins that people can kind of take away?
So this is my ideal, okay? And I think
Mhm.
founders have an opportunity to do this from the very beginning is um, create an environment that is non-siloed right from the get-go, right? And so even though you're going to hire a head of sales and a head of marketing, a head of delivery, they need to be in the room together talking about the key strategies and growth plan of the company. And on top of that, the processes that are defined should be cross-functional in
Yeah.
nature, and the systems shared and the data, right? So if you can do that from the very beginning, it's really, really powerful. And then I would say, create the customer experience that you want to give to your customers that is going to bring the most value. And then everybody aligns to that, right? And align your employee experience to that and your product development and all of that to that experience of your customers, because now you're sort of centralizing, right? Everybody's focus and priorities and the output that's going to give your customers that value. And if you can do those things early on, um, it's going to be a powerful growth accelerator.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I, wish I could go back to when we first started the business and start doing that right away, right? Because it's something that's so, so, so important, I think, when it comes to prioritizing, like obsessing over the customer journey and customer experience and really understanding like where can you provide the most value to these people. I think that's what's going to ultimately, it doesn't matter what sales or marketing tactics you're using or strategies you're using. If you don't have the fundamentals of your customer experience and customer journey dialed in, you could pour all the gasoline on a fire that's non-existent, but it's not going to catch flames, right? So
Exactly.
I think that it's like the groundwork zero stuff that you must have really dialed in to have any of the marketing or sales strategies even work. Because if you don't have a good product, you don't have a good customer experience, you have low retention, you have low customer LTV, right? Which is just a disaster for any type of business that's trying to grow.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can always create sizzle. At
Yeah.
the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you can't deliver,
Yeah.
it's only
Yeah.
going to go
Yeah.
so far too.
Mary, I always love to ask this question, towards the end here, because it seems like you've had this abreast of knowledge within this, specific, category that you've been able to carve out. Like, if you had to, take all this experience that you've obviously had from different, your different career, and you could go back to your younger self, right, and tell your younger self some advice. What would be your like one or two pieces of nuggets that you would be able to share with the audience as well?
So I would share that the people that you think have all the answers don't. um,
Mhm.
and so, have your ideas, the things that you see, have a voice early, because that's going to help the organization, but also you in your career and create visibility and all of these good things. But I think and I'll speak for myself, early in my career, I just figured that the executive team in the room had everything figured out. When I got to the executive table, I was like, no, they don't.
Yeah.
And so, I think employees are the frontline employees are the best position to see what's happening with the company, and they should be heard, right? So share your voice. And then for leaders, I would say make sure that you're listening and tapping into their voice, because it's the best source of what's working, what's not working.
Feedback, right? Feedback in every area, I think, is like so, so, so essential, right? And I love that you bring that up. What do you enjoy most about what you do, Mary? Like, what is that? What is the fulfillment here for you?
What drives me is, and this is my whole career, and I just have so many great stories about this, which is individual people's lives have been changed simply
Mm,
by changing the way that they work. It's made people more visible and they're
yeah.
recognized, right? It's made promotion opportunities and development. So if companies adopt processes and systems in the way that they're designed, and they truly put employees and customers at the center of their business, it's amazing what happens and how employees' lives can be transformed, customers' outcomes and lives can be transformed. You really can see, these changes when people are sort of focused on the right things. So that's what I really love, is seeing just people's lives change.
Yeah. I think that makes everything else so much more enjoyable, right? Because then you start to see that your work actually has an impact, right? And I think that's the beautiful thing about what you do. Mary, it's been great having a conversation with you, hearing a little bit more about your background, your takes on the market. Definitely some interesting insights, and I feel like people are going to take a lot from this episode. If people are listening to this and like, how do I get a hold of you, Mary? Like, what are some of the ways that people should go ahead and contact you?
Definitely LinkedIn. Just
Mhm.
Mary Poppin on LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me, and I check it all the time. So that would probably be the best way. And then you can check out our Horizons website too, and you could reach out to me that way.
Perfect. Well, I'll make sure to include both of those in the links in the description for people to go check out. If you guys did make it all the way to the end, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Mary. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.